Well, first off, there's a lot of planes flying overhead, and I apologize for that, but the FAA does not listen to me about when I'm making videos. Anyways, when talking about positioning of the body in order to have proper respiratory excursion or breathing patterns, okay, we really want to think about kind of like the hydraulic physics behind our axial skeleton, as well as our thoracic and abdominal cavities. Okay, so if you can imagine like a hydraulic shock in like a car or a dirt bike or a mountain bike, or just like a simple like can of Coke or like an energy drink or something like that, right? It has incredible compression and tensile capacities, and it can really withstand massive amounts of force. Okay, but that's only capable because you have two planes, the superior and inferior end, that are parallel with each other. Okay, so think about my pelvic floor down here. Okay, pelvic floor. Okay, my rib cage. Like bottom of rib cage right there. Okay, noting that the diaphragm is really going to be starting up here somewhere. Okay, so when those things are parallel with each other, like a hydraulic shock, what can happen is they can withstand a lot of compression. And when you breathe down with your respiratory diaphragm, okay, you get a like synergistic movement of the pelvic floor. Now, as that pelvic floor moves, okay, it's loading that system and then allowing that expansion to go outwards into the abdominal wall 360 degrees all the way around, right? Like we just talked about, it's not just forward, it's not belly breathing, because I can do a belly breath while still coming up here, right? Like I can push my belly out and still breathe up. Like that's not ideal. That's not proper breathing, although it will fake out a lot of people. Okay, but to go back, so when we have our two diaphragms parallel with each other or in plane, that allows that 360-degree expansion around all sides of the abdominal cavity. When that happens, okay, that's allowing for our spine to be supported, okay, with like a corset. Okay, like your body is built in with a corset or built in with like a weightlifting belt or like a mover's belt. You don't necessarily need to wear one of these, you just need to learn how to actually utilize the one that God and nature designed for you. So, when you are not in position for that, okay, when we are not here, but instead here, okay, that would be like an anterior pelvic tilt and like a superior and anterior rib flare. Okay, this is like the, if you want to look at like Yonda's work or something like that, or Kolosh, okay, this is like the open scissor position like that. That would be the equivalent of like stepping on a can that has a little crink in it, which can pretty much just go really easily under not that much weight. Okay, so instead of that nice weightlifting belt or corset or however you want to think about it, absorbing that load every time we move, or when we're sitting in a desk all day, just holding ourselves in proper position without terribly loading this vertebra in the spine, we are here, okay? As you can see, what that is going to do is that's going to compress the facets, narrow the IVF, create more likelihood of irritation of the nerve roots. It's going to cause more stress on the osseous structures and encourage our body to lay down like osteophytes and growth to kind of support that structure. And all in all, this is really just going to result in aches, pains, and the symptoms that your patients will present with in your office. Okay, so now that's just from a general health perspective. Now let's talk about this from a performance perspective, because I think that's what a lot of us are interested in. Okay, maximizing athletic performance and performance in whatever activities people enjoy doing. That could even just be like gardening or playing with your kids or going for a walk. Okay, so when my abdominal wall has some sort of tension in it, and then I breathe into it, that's going from a concentrically oriented contraction of the abdominal wall into an eccentrically oriented contraction of the abdominal wall. Okay, so now if you remember from anatomy, an eccentric contraction is about 30% stronger than a concentric contraction. So when we create proper tone and positioning with our abdominal wall musculature, okay, which is the transverse abdominis, internal and external obliques, and the rectus abdominis, as well as the multifidi in the posterior side, okay, we are allowing for a strong eccentric contraction to occur. Now that's going to drastically increase our overall capacity to withstand load and force. Also, what this is going to do is position our pelvis and hips in a position, as well as our torso and scapulothoracic joints in a position that allows our prime movers to work. Okay, so like a lot of people when they squat, they're going like from here to here, right? Posterior pelvic tilt, standing up and extending the spine like this. Okay, you're just getting a very large spinal erector workout basically. Okay, it does not matter what a textbook or someone on Instagram says is the primary muscles involved in an exercise. It matters what your biomechanics and your positioning allows to be the primary movers or muscles involved in an exercise. So if I'm coming up from my squat, but I'm extending through here, okay, my glutes are not going to be able to contract all the way. But if I get from here to here, now my glutes can punch through and I can actually use like those big diesel engines on the backside of my body, okay? People who cannot grow their glutes, it's not that you're like genetically ungifted, right? I've seen this a lot of times. It just means that you don't know how to properly stabilize your pelvis to be able to allow those large muscles to come in and utilize all of their tensile capacity, okay? So think about trying to fire like a cannon out of a canoe, okay? If you try to fire a cannon out of a canoe, you don't have any support and it's just going to throw the whole thing back. Your body is not going to allow you to cause damage to yourself by unleashing strength potential that you don't have the capacity to stabilize. It's just that simple. So in order to actually be able to use the muscles of your legs or like your pecs or your lats to the capacity that they're meant to without causing like aches and pains, you need to have proper spinal positioning. And proper spinal positioning under load or against force is dictated by proper breathing and abdominal tension 360 degrees so that we can stabilize our axial skeleton and allow our appendicular skeleton to bring it.